Well, hi everyone. Welcome to Drams from Afar. Happy Wednesday. Hope everyone's keeping well. Hope everyone's staying safe. What we're going to be discussing tonight is some cool stuff. So I was going to go over a bit more about Sipsmith, which I talked about last week. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about distillation so that we understand what we're talking about. And I've got this cool little toy to help me. And then I'm going to make us a drink. I'm going to make us a Tom Collins. So it's going to be super exciting. Hopefully I won't take up too much of your time. Again, we're live, we're interactive. Simon Modra is in the background there helping me out. So if you've got any questions, feel free to just post them. He might read them out to me. He might take it upon himself to answer them. You never know. But if he's wrong, then I'll come back and correct it later. Or if you just feel like saying hi to us, then do that too. Cool, sound good? Okay, so we'll start off with just a little bit more about Sipsmith and distillation, so you understand about our stills, which are really important to us. So I'm just going to have a little taste of it first. There we go, Sipsmith bottle. So there are 3 stills at the Sipsmith distillery. They're called Prudence, Patience and Constance. Really, really cute names. So first I thought I'd tell you a bit about why they were named that way. Prudence is a bit tongue-in-cheek. So if you guys remember last week, I was telling you about how Sam and Fairfax and Jared Brown were starting up the distillery in 2007. And they were taking all kinds of crazy risks, right? They put their houses on the market, they moved their families into rental accommodation, they'd done all of this crazy stuff. And at the time, Gordon Brown was warning about a recession and quite famously said that everybody should be really prudent with their money. And as the guys had literally just sold their houses so they could buy a copper pot still, they called that copper pot still Prudence. So that's how she got her name. And she was by herself, just a little 300 litre still by herself for 4 years, when the guys decided to buy a second still, Patience. So they got Patience, but Patience was actually a bit too big for the premises. You couldn't fit this top part on her. So for 6 months, she waited patiently and was just basically a fancy macerating tank. And then 6 months later, they moved into new premises and finally she was able to act as a proper still. So that's why she was called Patience. And then Constance joined the gang. Constance is bigger, 1500 litre still. And called Constance because she represents the continuous nature. So she is all she works on is the London Dry style gin, and she just pumps that out. So she's the continuous nature of the distillery. So there you go. That's their names. I actually I jumped online to the distillery this morning and had a look at what they're all doing at the moment. Prudence and Constance are macerating. And Prudence and Constance are macerating, and Patience is resting at the moment. So basically how this works, when I say macerating and resting and etc., at night time, so about 6 p.m, then into this bit of the still, okay, we put the raw alcohol and all of those botanicals that I talked about last week, the 10 botanicals, okay, and that all sits there and macerates, just gets itself together for like 14 hours. So we come back at 8 o'clock in the morning, the next morning, and fire up the still. We start heating it up, okay? So if you can imagine, I'm going to have a sip of this one, I forgot about that. Oh, it's lovely. That real juniper forward flavour that we come to expect from a London Dry. Lots of lovely citrus there too. So what happens is we heat all of this stuff up. This is our raw spirit that's been macerated with our botanicals, okay? We heat that up to 80, okay? At 78.3, alcohol turns to vapour, okay? And it will start coming up here, turns to steam, and will come up here. But water doesn't boil until 100 degrees, so the water will stay as liquid, okay? So what we're doing is we're separating the alcohol from the water, and then that comes down here and cools down, okay? And we take that, we take the heart, so not the first bit that comes off, and not the second bit, not the last bit that comes off, but the bit in the middle, and then we just add water to that and bring it down to the 41.6 ABV. Okay? So that's basically how distillation works. I hope that was interesting for some of you. I hope it wasn't dry, but I find that when you talk about it like that, it's actually just, it's really simple to break down. So, the Tom Collins. Should I make it first? No, I think I'll tell you about it first. So the Tom Collins is a really interesting drink. It's, Chris Britton will tell you, hi Chris if you're watching, that it's one of my favourite drinks. Anytime anyone talks about what cocktails they should be pre-batching, what's an easy gin cocktail, I always bring up the Tom Collins because I really, really love it. My sisters and I often make big jugs of these when we're having lots of people over, and we'll just keep pouring from that jug throughout the day. So, how did the Tom Collins get its name? Well, there are two stories. I'll tell you both of them. One theory is that the drink actually derived from a drink called the John Collins. Okay, so John Collins was actually a bartender in the first half of the 1800s in the Plymouth Bar in London. Okay, and he made a very similar drink to this. It was a gin punch, and he was quite famous for it. So why would the name have changed from a John Collins to a Tom Collins? Well, at the time, the style of gin that was becoming more and more popular, or overtaking more and more, was called an Old Tom style. So gin had basically been driven underground. The governments were trying to stop people drinking so much gin, but rather than stop, people just started making it illegally. And they were throwing all sorts of nasty things into it, including like turpentine and sulfuric acid, right? Super gross. So in order to make it taste a bit more palatable, they were adding sugar. So this is the style of gin it was, a slightly sweeter style. It got the name Old Tom Gin because if you wanted to buy some of this Old Tom Gin, this illegal style gin at the time, you just wandered around the neighbourhood, and the pubs that were selling it had like a cat sign up in their window and a little slot underneath it and a little pipe. And if you went up and put your little penny into that slot, the bartender would see it come through and would pour a nip of gin into it, and it'd come out, and you could catch it, I suppose, in your mouth, or if you had a glass, you could do it that way, like one of the world's first styles of vending machines, right? So that was called Old Tom Gin after the Old Tom Cat. So maybe it was a John Collins, became a Tom Collins, named after Old Tom Gin. Could have been. The other theory, okay, so this is just hilarious. There was a thing called the Great Tom Collins Hoax of 1874, okay? It was this massive practical joke that went viral around New York and Philadelphia in 1874. And basically, the way the joke went was that you'd have two blokes standing in a bar, right? And bloke number one would say to bloke number two, so have you heard of a guy called Tom Collins? And bloke two would say, no, never heard of him. Why's that? Bloke one says, well, I mean, he's been running around saying all sorts of terrible things about you, that you'd steal anything except a red hot stove, and that, you know, your mother's horrible, etc., etc. And bloke number two would get all riled up, and bloke one goes, well, I reckon he's in the pub across the road. Why don't we go and find him? I'll help you beat him up. So they run over, and bloke two's all riled up and goes, well, I'm looking for Tom Collins. And the bartender goes, oh, you just missed him. He's at the pub over there. And so they run off, and this was the way the joke went. It seems like it's a little lame in our terms, but it kept people in stitches for a year. All the newspapers started reporting on it. First, they thought Tom Collins was a real person and upsetting all of these citizens. And then they realised that it was just a joke, and so they perpetuated it. They were posting false sightings of Tom Collins, and very, very funny. So how did the drink come from this? Well, the bartenders got smart. So if you've got a bloke running into your bar constantly saying, I'm looking for Tom Collins, the bartender came up with this drink, and whenever anyone started screaming about Tom Collins, they gave them the drink, the Tom Collins. So there you go. That's two theories. I like the second one. The second one definitely did happen. Look it up. Google the Great Tom Collins Hoax of 1874. It's the fact that you can Google that is hilarious to me. So I'll make it for you. It's a really easy drink. So again, just in keeping with what I've been talking to you guys about, and I want to keep things as simple as possible for you so you can make these drinks at home. We're going to need gin. Very important. Now you can shake this. I'm just going to build it and give it a stir because I think it's easier for you guys at home. But if you want to put these first 3 ingredients in a shaker and then put them in a glass, be my guest. So I'm putting 2 shots or 60 mils of gin into my glass here. Okay. And then I'm going to put 20 mils of my sugar syrup. So I mixed my sugar syrup up earlier. As I've said to you guys before, sugar syrup is like the easiest thing in the world to make. You put half boiling water, half sugar in a vessel of any size, mix it up till the sugar's dissolved. That's sugar syrup. And I'll keep in the fridge for ages. Okay, so I'll put 20 mils in there. Now, I am going to, first of all, got too many things here. I'm just going to cut a little garnish from this before I destroy it. Right. Now, traditionally, this would actually be garnished with a maraschino cherry as well, but I don't have any. So I'm just going to go with lemon peel. Okay. Now, my juicer. I'm just going to juice a lemon here. This is a pretty juicy lemon, so I probably only need to juice 1. There we go. Again, if you don't have fresh lemons, never fear. You can make this using lemon squeezy stuff. It's fine. I shouldn't be telling you that. Some people would get very angry with me, but we're talking about how to make some cocktails at home, so you're right. It's fine. Okay, so I'm going to put 20 mils of my fresh lemon juice in there. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to make that 30 mils actually because I like the lemon juice. I like my drinks pretty tart. Okay, now I am going to fill my glass, almost fill my glass, with ice. Okay. I'm going to give that a quick stir, okay? Just like that. Just a quick stir. I want to chill it a bit. I want to dilute it just a little bit, like I would if I was shaking it. Okay? And just mix it all together. Okay? And I'm going to finish that little top up bit there. And here we have soda water. We'll just put a little bit in there. Professor Jerry Thomas, who was a very, very famous bartender back in the day, in 1874, published the recipe for this drink, and he said it should be consumed while still lively. Now we're taking lively to mean all sparkling and everything. I'm putting my garnish in here. There we go. A little bit of lemon. Got my little collapsible straw here. Let's have a taste. It's totally delicious. Oh my god, it's just one of my favourite drinks. If you like these drinks a little sweeter, feel free to add a little more sugar syrup. I like mine on the tart side. So that's the way I've made it. Any questions? No? We're all good? Okay guys, well, if you have any requests for next week, feel free to shoot them in the comments. I'm going to be back here, well, loves a cocktail this one. It's quite surprising really. Poor thing, I've only been feeding him beer for years. All of a sudden I discover he loves a cocktail. There we go, a Tom Collins, he's happy. Alright, cheers guys. He's taking it back, thanks hon. I'll leave you to it. I hope you have a lovely rest of your evening. Let me know if there's anything specific you'd like to see made next week. Otherwise, I will see you same bat time, same bat channel. See ya.